I would say something and then he would develop it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good exploration, I would say.
Very good. And since then, so let's look back over the last 6 months or so. What have been some of your favorite accomplishments or building blocks that you've put into place for bringing your vision to fruition over the last 6 months?
Well, there's quite a lot going on at the moment. I've finished writing my book, and so it's now it's now how do I get it out into the world? So we're talking about. I gave it to sort of my project manager, and he told me that it doesn't need content editing, which was kind of exciting.
Wow.
Just proofreading, and I'm excited by that. There's a lot of trust in there.
Yes.
And I launched a series of webinars which started with the title of Leading from Within, and now have developed from one of the themes of the book, which is rewilding. So rewilding leadership is where we've got to. And I've got a couple of webinars in 2 days' time on Thursday that I'm going to be exploring some of the aspects of rewilding that can be applied to leadership, which is feels very important to me, and it's a great mindset. It's a great paradigm, I think, for challenging some of the principles of leadership that have been taught since the early 1900s, which really are so hopelessly out of date now, and yet are still being taught, particularly in business schools and some schools as well. So.
Well, in the book launch, a lot of you visionaries out there are familiar with the process or the idea of launching a book. And I love that you said you finished writing it and you're very aware of the uphill battle and challenges that exist with where you go with it from there. And the content editing aspect, at first I was concerned because you said that, it needed none of that. But then he said proofreading, and I was like, okay, they still got a process. But I see so many people prematurely publish their books without a great plan. And it's one of those, it's like you can publish a website and it doesn't hurt you too bad because you can just edit it as you go. But with a book, you got to land the reviews, right? The ratings on Amazon and stuff. You got to have a whole club of people ready to support it. It's a process. And so I'm glad to hear you're doing that well. It's not surprising to me, given the dedication you've put into your brand, Serenity and Leadership. I love the way that you submitted to that what we're going to talk about today. And Tom, it's not common for me to allow my guest to fully drive the theme of the direction, but in this case, you've earned that. You've put decades into figuring this out. So yeah, you answered the question. Where did your vision come from? What circumstances helped bring it to life? And, what is the vision that you have? And you said to influence the influencers, encouraging them to take full responsibility for the impact they have on their people, their organization, and the environment. You furthered that concept. You said growth is a common driver, but as the world evolves, it's becoming increasingly clear that growth for its own sake is unsustainable. We must instead reframe the concept of growth within the context of our broader purpose. I would go as far to say it's not only an unhealthy practice to grow for the sake of growth, it's toxic, it's destructive for us as individuals. So I'm really happy to hear you leaning into that. Normally I'd ask for 3 resources, but I'd love to just dive into those concepts first. We live in a world that's just struggling with inauthenticity. Where do we go from here, Tom?
Well, there's different dimensions to that, I think.
Yeah.
The first is the first word that came into my mind as you asked me that question was education. We are
Love that.
We are teaching our young people to replicate the mistakes and the environment that we have created. And at the same time, I'm encouraged, I think, that a lot of young people are coming in now, coming into the world, coming into late teenhood, early 20s, and they really have a different set of values. So it's like they're ripe to be educated, to challenge things and to think differently to the way that we've experienced. So that's one thing. But nevertheless, we have governments that dictate. And, I mean, what's going on in the US, I don't know, how political one wants to be in a conversation like this. But, burning books was never a good idea. And in just the same way as the Israeli government today are talking about eliminating Hamas, the concept is completely unworkable, because they're creating, as they try and destroy so much, they are creating people who will grow up with a level of hatred that few of their antecedents had. I remember when I was in the military and I was involved in the troubles in Northern Ireland, I saw what trying to eliminate a concept or an idea does. You can't do it. You cannot do it. So we need a new political system. We need people to go into politics not as a way to make money, not as a way to have a career, but as a way to be a servant of the people and to make decisions that are in the interests, the greater interests of the society and of the people. There are almost no politicians like that now, almost none. There's one or two in the British government, but they tend to be ostracized, they tend to be criticized, and all sorts of things are done to mobilize ways of demeaning them or disempowering them, which I find very sickening, actually. But that, I mean, I could go on, but I think
I appreciate the authenticity in what you're saying. You're not shying away from a subject that most people don't want to touch. You're willing to dive into it with a healthy dose of assuredness, but also a respect that if I challenged it, I don't think you would leave the air. I don't think you would feel the need to back down on it. I watched a movie a few weeks ago called Michael Collins. I had no concept of the story. And so ironically, I watched it right before you came on and talked about some of what I saw in that history, where this man had a concept of freedom that he wanted to achieve, and the government and people fought so hard against, the bureaucracy fought so hard against what he was standing for and what he was doing, that no, they couldn't win. He created a movement that was successful, even if it did hurt his own life. The movement was not going to be stopped. Right. And so I would be happy to tie that back to, okay, so in a world of influencers, right, that, and I think my generation, I think the millennials, and perhaps even the generation before us, maybe it's not generational, maybe this is forever a reality, but there's a lot of pressure put on us to be perfect. There's a lot of pressure on us to perform for the sake of love. And to, if we didn't have the type of career our parents wanted, we were a disappointment. Right. If we didn't do the church things the way our parents wanted, then there's a disappointment. Right. And so a lot of us, I think a lot of people learned to be something in public that they're not in private, in order to feel connected to the world and feel acceptable. And that is a big part of why Instagram and TikTok and people show up and say, you know what, I better be something that people accept on the external in order to feel valued in this world. Am I wrong or am I right about that?
Yeah, you said I'd better. I'm not sure it's that. I think it's I was writing about this today, funnily enough, this sense of loneliness that is so prevalent in such an ironical situation where we're supposed to be so connected.
Yeah.
So Instagram, I know less about TikTok, but Facebook, all this lot, they're selling snake oil in a way,
Yes.
and I think people go on there, and yes, they feel the need to be perfect. They feel, I mean, I experience it, for goodness sake. You know, I'm trying to build up followers. I want more people to see the stuff that I'm investing in and putting out there, which are ideas, which will then bring them to me to come to attend one of my leadership programs or a webinar, or, you know, if they're incredibly enlightened, come and be coached by me. But how do I build my followership? You know, what sort of things have I got to do to please these people so that they're sufficiently interested they're going to watch a little video clip, or read a small caption, as opposed to just swiping by. You know, it's like Tinder and all that lot. It's another version of Tinder. It's swipe, swipe, swipe.
Yes, it is.
And it's sad. It's so sad, because actually what we need to do is to be going out there and talking to people and engaging and finding someone and saying, I really don't agree with this guy, but he's saying something that's different to me. I'm curious about that. Why does he believe that? Why is he saying that? And what is the reaction? What is the visceral reaction that's happening in me as a result of this? You know, do I just hate him because he just disagree? He says something that I don't like. I mean, what logic is that? It's crazy. It's crazy, but that's the world that we're living in.
It's human.
It's so short term, and it's so shallow. I wrote a piece for HR Zone, which was published today, funnily enough, about men's mental health. And one of the things that I am so sad about is that, certainly in this country, I mean, the US is a different subject, really, but they've austerity. You know, after the banks went bust and we put all our money into saving them, one of the things that they cut back on was spaces where young men could go and be interested and have an activity that took them away from hanging out on a street corner, spitting on people and taking some kind of drug. You know, young men need something to engage with. They need something that challenges them, that corrals their ego.
Yep.
And then they can grow up to be healthy contributors and members of society, and challenge. And you know, I'm not saying it's all sort of lovey-dovey. You know, men need to express their masculinity in a way that is creative and robust. But all those environments have gone, and we've just got shitty holes that they can go in instead. And what's the result? Gangs, violence. It's
isolation.
Yeah. Loneliness, desperation, suicide. The rates of suicide of young men is the highest, you know, reason for death of young men up to the age of 50. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
It is. Let's dive into the opposite side of that, though. Let's dive into what we're doing to resolve. And I'll start with the first 3 resources. What are 3 resources you would recommend for other visionaries who are building out there? You're right. It's challenging. It's hard to figure the social media game out. It's hard to figure out how to build. You've built a lot of clarity around your website and a lot around your messaging, and you've focused on serenity, which so much of the world has decided to kind of abandon in place of fun or enthusiasm or dopamine, or lots of other things that are related to that. What are the 3 resources, Tom?
Gosh. Well, the first that comes to mind is this sense of serenity. I think we've become incredibly disconnected from nature. So, I took the dogs out this morning, and I stopped a number of times in front of a flower and I just smelt it. I want to find ways where I can get a sense of my role and place in nature. I'm not the master of this. I am a part of it. And I think to have that sense of groundedness, I think it can be enormously resourcing. So that's one thing. Take the time. I mean, they say take the time to smell the roses.
It's huge. It's huge. And yet yesterday, when I was on a walk, talking to somebody very important to me, making the time for that, right? And it's hard when you're a single father of 4 too. There's a lot of directions I get pulled in, right? But as I walked past this bush of flowers that I had never seen, like paid attention to before, here I was, like just appreciating the aroma of that. And I'm glad you're doubling down with me on it, because I looked up the definition of serenity right now while you were talking. I was like, okay, I know this has to do with peace, but I haven't looked at the full definition in a long time and what's there. And so I obviously haven't mastered it, but it said calm, peace. And then it said a word that I didn't associate with it yet. It said untroubled.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's what I need right now. I need that in my life right now. And I have all the access to it if I'm willing to be aware of that, right? And really dive into it. I can meticulously, methodically, meditatively lean into that. So first off, thank you for the first switch of serenity. Yes, I have the power to be untroubled, right? And I need to lean into that. What's number 2?
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Well, number 2 is, there might be a big challenge. Particularly in the States. I lived in the States for 6 years, and you go into a person's house, and typically the TV would be on, and if not, certainly the radio was on, if not both. And I say this with a degree of humility, because I find this really hard to do myself, but switch off the noise. Switch off the noise. When I'm coaching CEOs and sort of senior execs, I often say to them, how can you hear the faint signals? Because when there's so much noise in your life, you can't. And yet, as the leader of an organization, you need to be able to sense the future which is coming towards you. And I remember driving up a motorway a while back, and I was about 10 miles away from where I was living. And I remembered then what I needed to have with me to go to the meeting that I was on my way to. And I didn't have it. And then I thought back, and as I was leaving the house, there was a sense that I had that I needed to take something with me. But I was too noisy in myself to hear that. And I remember shouting in the car, speak louder. But it's like, no, you shut up and listen. So it's give yourself some space where there isn't any noise.
Golly, man. Our lives, the stars of alignment of this, Tom, I just can't. And one of my prayers this morning, I had a very open talk with God about that. And I know how important it is to listen, and that we call it the still calm voice. It's that talk that that you said as a leader, you need to be able to sense the future that is coming towards you. And with all that distraction on, we can't. And I literally kind of told God the same thing. I was like, I need to hear, I need to understand. Right. I need to understand. And it's not too different than what you were saying, speak louder. And I got that calm voice back of like, you will, like hang in there. Like it's not coming the way that you want it to, Jackson. That's not how this process works. But I do want to lean in deep to that. At first I got on my high horse as soon as you talked about the TV and radio, and I was like, mine's never on. And I was like, yes, I'm winning. And then I remembered my computer whirring, right? We were talking, and I'm like, no, I turned that off too. I was like, don't go there. I turned that off too. So I'm like champion. And then I remember my phone, and I was like, crap. I do a decent job of unplugging, but it's still there, right? It's still coming at me a lot of times, interrupting those signals that you talked about. And then I remembered my personal relationships. And now it has nothing to do with technology, but sometimes we either overindulge in a relationship or we take on other people's baggage that we're not supposed to take on. There's so much noise, right? There's so many things that can keep replacing the noise that we might remove. So I'm going to ask a bold question. Maybe you do or don't have the answer. If those are symptoms, if the TV is a symptom, if the radio is a symptom, well, then what the heck? Where do we go? Like what is it that really needs to be shut off? How do we really tune in to that serenity?
Well, we are the masters of our own destiny. Try it. Quite a few people now are trying meditation. Some people find it unbelievably difficult, and I'm one of them. So, you give yourself a break. Meditate for a minute. Just switch everything off for a minute and just sit there. And, your head will be spinning and, I've got to do this and I want some breakfast and my stomach's aching. And, oh, God, I forgot about the papers that the kids have got to take to school. All of that is going on. But that is practice. And it's not about trying to close it off. It's about thank you. So sometimes I kind of get panicky about, oh God, I've got to do this. And then the thought comes to me and says, well, right now, there's nothing you can do about that. So let it go. We spend so much, such a high percentage of our time worrying about things that are not going to happen. And it takes energy, and it distances ourselves from that place of serenity, which is there.
Wow. I'm taking a lot of notes in this one, guys. This is powerfully aligned with what I need in my life right now as a visionary. And I honor that. And I hope the rest of you too are able to use these moments of silence to sense, what is it that you need to do as leaders? All visionaries in this role are leaders. We may not be of the Winston Churchill levels. We may not be the president of countries, and some of us yet, right? And at the same time, if we're called into a sense of purpose where we're supposed to be helping others, and it's so important to learn to access powers beyond our cerebral recognition, right? Beyond our emotional reactions and instincts as well. And I'd love to dive into resource number 3. Tom, what do you got? What's the third one that's helped you get to where you are?
I think there is no greater gift that one person can give to another than their 100% presence. And so the resource there is how can I be with this person? So, I switch off the phone, I do whatever. But in that moment, even if you're just passing someone in the street and you have a very brief interchange, in that moment, you are there with them. My daughter picked me up on this years ago, and we were on the phone, and I was fiddle-faffing on the computer at the same time. And she stopped talking and she said, "You're not really with me, are you?" Mm. And we were just on the phone. But she could sense that. I'm, pretty basic, so it was fairly obvious, I suppose. But, that pulled me up pretty short. I'm still not great at that, but I do know that, and even not so much being on the giving end of that, but on the receiving end of that, if somebody is really there talking to you and there is nothing else, there are no other distractions. Clear your desk. I am with this person. Bang, full stop, 100%. And if they're doing it both ways, I mean, that's when you can feel. That's when love will transmit, pass between people. I mean, because it is a moment of great respect, and it is a moment of great love.
Yes. Oh, I absolutely love that. There's levels on this too, right? It's like a dial for volume, right? There's lots of levels where this can exist, and maximizing the dial of tuning in presently allows us to maximize that power of love and how it's felt. So I did something while you were talking about that. And one, I want to go back to what you said. You said, I guess the resource is after you said the resource, but I want to go back to, you nailed the resource. The resource is 100% presence. I don't think anybody should mince words. I got cerebral people I meet with, Tom, who would in a heartbeat, and I can think of their faces and their names, and I won't shame them. But all of you listening, you have people in your life like this who would say, well, like, how is that practical? Or how do you, like, what is the real resource behind it? And they don't mean to disrespect the sacred value of what was just given. They just can't see it. They just can't feel it the way those of you who are leaning into this. And it's important because you're surrounded by so many people who can't, who won't pick that up, who won't learn like, oh, I'm supposed to do something with this from here and meditate on it myself and find what this means for me. So thank you for diving into some examples on that. And I think the greater opportunity for all of you visionaries listening in is, how do I lean into figuring out what does 100% presence mean for me, right? So I'm taking notes here and I'm like, okay, wait, am I really present with Tom if I'm taking notes? Because my brain is doing this and I'm focused on this pen. And then I took my phone and it was sitting in front of me like this, right here underneath there. And it was on vibrate. And I should never leave my phone on vibrate during the podcast. Right. And I'm like, it'll be fine. And then I said, no, I'm not being present. He's talking about being present right now. So I was being unpresent, literally going through this. And I was like, okay, I'm going to turn on silent. And I threw my phone over there. And it's one more way to just turn that dial up. And I think it's easy as human beings to trap ourselves in the concept of beating ourselves up and focusing on what we fall short on and then diving into guilt and shame. But we all have an opportunity to say, you know what? Tom's pouring his heart and soul out to us by showing up on the show and giving away his giving. And I don't need to wallow in self-pity. Can I dive right back in with him and say, you know what, I'm going to turn my dial up too. I'm going to meet him where he's meeting me. So we're going to come right back, my friends. We're going to dive in and talk about influence and Tom's vision for that. We've already talked about the inauthenticity of the world. We've already talked about how we're all in this world that contains a lot of mud and a lot of distraction, a lot of fighting and things like that. But I'd love to dive in and see where he's going with the vision, how he's helping people, how he can help us too. We're going to do our best to pull together as much truth and value for as possible. based on the love that Tom is talking about. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Callum. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Callum, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I'm super excited to have Tom Dennis on the stage with me from Serenity in Leadership. Those words are really, really sacred to me, by the way. So when I saw that Tom was coming on the show, I went and Googled his brand and I was like, okay, he's got a well-structured website too. I went and checked that out and I felt the serenity of it. I could see, I was like, okay, this guy is really working to be intentional in helping others. He's got decades of wisdom as well. There's so much opportunity to lean in and see, okay, what truths can he unpack for the rest of us? What things can we gain from somebody who's decided to dedicate his life and vision to the space of serenity in a world that moves towards entertainment and noise and hype and hustle, things that are ultimately at odds with the idea of leaning into serenity. So to me, this interview is an absolute pleasure. Before I bring Tom back on stage, I do want to make sure to talk about some of the other resources you have available to you. We're going to start with Junaid Ahmed's Home Studio Mastery. I've got a podcast. I'm really happy with the setup that I have. And yet I'm also grateful to have a business partner in Junaid now who builds out world-class podcast studios. This is for those who want to be an industry expert. This is for those who want to be able to lead their industries, who really understand the value of, you know what, if let's just say that you're in a market or an industry where you need to have the appearance of leading as a great leader. You can't show up in a Pinto. You need to have your Lamborghini present, or you need to have a nicer car. Well, I get that. That's not how I do things. I lead the third world, just so y'all are clear. I want to be relatable and present in a way that's different than the way Junaid's able to set these studios up. So when it comes to upgrading studios and when it comes to my clients moving towards that, Junaid is absolutely the place that we turn people to, because he knows how to put all those details in order and what it takes to have a world-class podcast studio. So if that's you, go ahead and check him out and see what he's up to in terms of building media schools out as well to help young kids make the most of their life and create a better sense of freedom of the press. As y'all know, we suffer tremendously from that in this world too. Moving on, we got Dr. Danny Brissell. Dr. Danny Brissell isn't only a world-class, world-renowned speaker who helps corporate organizations, professionals move their lives forward. What I really love about Danny is he's got a program called The Reading Habit. He's an educator. He's a teacher. He helps parents inspire their children to become great leaders and to learn to love to read. And he's got that energy where he's one of those people you have to be careful with, because if you sit down with Danny in a 10-minute session or 20-minute session, he's going to change your life. And, you know, if you're like scared, like, I don't know if I want to meet this guy because he's going to make a big impact and he's going to inspire me and then I'm going to be, yes, he is that level of leader. I absolutely love talking to Danny. He has superpowers when it comes to helping people. And I can't think of too many better causes than actually helping kids learn how to read and helping them through the parents. So the parents get to be part of that experience as well, as they're going to be the ones who are there long-term. Danny comes in, he's able to make his mark and help people. He's got a program on this online as well. And I highly recommend checking out what Danny's doing to do that. If that touches your heart, if you understand the value of reading, reach out to him, partner with him, be a collaborator with what he's doing. That's what we're doing as well. Then there's the Water Project. As I said, I can't think of too many things that are more important than reading. And better than that, maybe this is, maybe this isn't. This is simply what I'm called to talk about. I understand the value of the Water Project because I meditated on it, not because I've been through it, but I imagined, what would it be like for my kids to not have water and to not know where the next source of water is? What about me as a provider? What if I had to leave work, you know, or risk bringing water home that wasn't safe for my kids? I've never, ever had to live with that type of experience, yet there are millions of people throughout the world who do. And because of organizations like the Water Project, we're able to get involved and do something about it. Look at this picture. These kids are celebrating water, perhaps with even more enthusiasm than my own kids celebrate Christmas Day itself. And that's just for the most basic, essential resource for us beyond the oxygen. We have the opportunity to choose which community we want to provide for. I love that they show you how the project works, what is being built, whether it's a sand dam or a borehole well or a upgrade to an existing infrastructure that they may have. It shows you how many people you're helping, and all you got to do is donate a little bit of money to that. Now, if you're struggling financially and you can't do that, my hope is that you'll just talk to others about it. You never know what happens when you spread the word about something that you believe in. You don't know how far that ripple effect is going to go. You might be the chain link that connects a friend to a friend that ends up investing $100,000 in helping said projects. So my hope is that you use your voice, you use your opportunity to influence. And with that being said, we're going to go back to this conversation about influence and purpose. And who better to speak to that than Tom Dennis. Tom, welcome back to Vision Pros Life.
Thank you, Jackson. I love the fluency with which you have just given people some important messages. It's very professional.
Thank you. You know, it's passion. I'll dive in with that. It's passion. It's because I care, right, about these institutes and these organizations, and all of you out there. You can flow with that type of fluency as you really lean into your passions with purpose. So back to that with Tom. Tom, tell me about your vision. Let's hear about what you see on the horizon.
Well, the project manager for my book sent me a whole bunch of questions, really, because they wanted to do the book cover design, and so they really wanted to get inside Tom Dennis and this concept of rewilding the corporate mind. And so I have this vision, I don't know, of a new type of leader really being in the majority of people who care and are in service. You know, we have political systems which are just so riven with money and self-aggrandizement. And what we need is, we desperately need people who are doing things because they can see the positive impact on community. I mean, the word sort of came into my mind, community. You know, we're too big. We're we're global, and yet we've lost our village.
Yes.
You know, you talk about being a single parent. My goodness, the number of people who are single parents. And in the past, a child was part of the community, and it was the community that brought the child up. So the burden was not just on the parents or parent, but on the support, the guidance, and the inspiration of all the elements that made up that community, which is so beautiful. And we've killed all that. Yeah. We don't have community anymore, pretty much. And where we do have it, the system is trying to break it down. So I'm looking for leaders who, you know, I mean, one of my great sort of models is Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, which is just such a truly amazing company.
Yes.
And if you look now, because they've had crashes from way back, they've now got people who are working in the organization who grew up through the crash system within the company. And that is a community, and it's an unbelievably successful community. I had the privilege to interview a guy who was the head of people HR. I mean, he had a big title for about 8 years at Patagonia, and I interviewed him on a couple of podcasts. And just the passion, he's left the organization, but still the passion. He still talked about we.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you know, Shrina and his family put the organization in trust to the earth, because it cost him a fortune in tax, but nobody can lay their hands on it now. And 10% of everything they turn over goes to protecting the environment. I mean, they're just beautiful people with beautiful ideas, principles, purpose, all these good things. It is possible.
Right.
It is possible. And so, I haven't put it like this before. I want leaders to create healthy, happy community.
I love that. I love that. I'm grateful that you talked about how it's possible. And, we live in a world of false guarantees, where that's the competition. Is this illusion of certainty. This vanity of, look at what I did, you're guaranteed to do this too, when the variables are so different. And it's so easy to fall victim of diving into that. But I can say wholeheartedly, I would rather strive for what's possible and aligned with purpose and fail than go towards some guaranteed outcome that makes me a shadow of the man that I meant to be. Right. That's not something I'm willing to concede and dive into. There's two questions we're going to skip for the sake of time. Things that I would love to talk about: worst leadership experience, best leadership experience. Maybe we can get you back. Maybe we can talk about those in the future, or do a separate segment that maybe is a solo and you send back. But I'm going to dive into the power question. My favorite question, Tom, if this is the last chance that you had to speak on earth, this was it, what powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
I thought you were going to go into power and the dynamics of power, as opposed to just saying it's a power question.
Powerful lesson. So in that, again, this is the last chance you had to leave wisdom with us. What would that wisdom be?
Be kind. You see someone that, and we make up stories about people very quickly. You see someone, you don't like the look of their face, so you make up a story. You see someone who's got some disability, and you make up a story about it. As opposed to saying, what is it about me that is making me uncomfortable? And who am I to make any judgments about this person? Life is tough. Even multi-millionaires, money doesn't buy happiness. But it does tend to amplify the journey that these people took to make a whole bunch of money, and a lot of that journey was probably quite uncomfortable for other people, and by implication for that individual as well. Don't judge. Just come with an open and kind mind. You could say, come with love. We could do with a bit more of that.
I'm tempted to let it resonate. Because I love it. And yes, we can do a bit with a bit more. It's a polite way of putting it. A very graceful way of leaving that. Be kind. I love it. I'm grateful for it. As we get ready to wrap up, are there any questions that no podcaster, no interviewer has asked you that you've been like, I want to answer this. I want to bring this to light. I want to talk about this subject. I'd be happy to use the next few minutes to dive into those territories.
Well, thank you. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is rewilding. There are
When
I'm
you
not
say
sure.
that, are you saying rewilding, like wild?
There you go. So the classic example is a 3,000 acre estate in the south of England, and the husband and wife who were running the estate, they've been trying and trying and trying to make it work, but it's just chalk, earth, and it wasn't supporting anything commercial in terms of farming. It was just desperate. So they took the decision in 2001 to just let it go. They took down all the fences. They introduced the hierarchy of animals that, as much as they could replicate, existed in ancient times. So instead of wild boar, there was a certain type of pig. And just looking at the pig, the pig does it uses its snout and digs for worms and stuff. And what it does is break up the hard earth. They brought deer, they brought wild horses, and very quickly they were starting to see animals that were extinct, thought were extinct, turning up in this place. There's one a bird that was almost unheard of it in this country, and now they found that 90% of these are in this 3,000 acre enclave, and it's like, I mean, there's the apocryphal stories of what they did in Yosemite, where they reintroduced the wolves, and that all started a whole series of changes. And it's been written up in all sorts of ways, and some of the stories are a bit apocryphal, but never mind. Knepp, this estate in the UK now, since 2001, I mean, they make a very good living from that land because people come and they do safaris there. They have an excess of, because they don't have any of the higher predators like lions or stuff like that, they have to cull some of the larger animals, like some of the deer. So, they'll take out the weakest ones, seasonally and that. And they're selling that meat. And so they're making a very good living, but in a totally different way to the way that they'd been introduced to it.
Right.
Yeah. What you get out of that are the principles of honoring nature, as opposed to us coming in with a level of arrogance that we know best and that we're going to have straight lines and we're going to make the earth work and work and work and work. We're going to put chemicals on it so that we get more and more. And some people say that there's only about 60 harvests left in most of the earth on the planet before it becomes dead. So we have to stop trying to rule nature, but work with nature. I mean, why on earth are we still putting all these chemicals on the land, which are killing bees, which are probably the single most important resource on the earth for feeding us? And the short-termism, the short sort of level of thinking that goes into, I've got to put all these chemicals on because I'm going to get the maximum out of my harvest or whatever, and forgetting, how it ruins the biological infrastructure. But not only that, all the chemicals that go into the offshoot when it rains into the rivers, which kill the fish, and then we drink the water, and then we're surprised, like in Flint, in the US, where people end up with cancers and all the rest of it. We are completely out of control. And we need to listen and listen to nature and honor our place in nature, as opposed to putting ourselves in somehow above it.
Rewilding. You guys heard it first here. Tom Dennis. I love it. I really strive to see the world from the perspective of physics, the perspective of what life has tried to teach us for thousands of years. Not what some influencers has uncovered in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead. You got another thought?
I mean, because what I'm then doing is taking the sort of the ideas of how nature works so beautifully, and then applying that to the corporate mind and leadership. So as a leader, do I come in and say, right, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and as opposed to saying, okay, this is the objective. Let's agree on that objective. And then let's say, what role, where is the best of all this team, and how can we work in such an integrated, systemic way that we can get towards what we are trying to achieve. And by the way, as we go along, the objective may change.
Yep.
And
it's funny to me. The Patrick Lencioni wrote a phenomenal book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. This there we go. This poster behind me is a reflection of these principles that he teaches. And it is ironic. It's not ironic. It's something that I know, though. Like, we could do a test on this and see. I bet most companies, once the leader learns this process and then wants to shift their company to follow this style, then tries to teach the style itself to people right away. Right, and says, all right, we're shifting, we're doing this. As you talk about, they apply this control, this force aspect. When in reality, in his book, the new CEO who's come into the company, he shares one tip that almost everybody forgets. She comes into the company and she sits back and watches for 2 weeks. She doesn't do a dang thing. And everybody's starting to see that. And he makes a big deal out of it. But I think most people forget that part of the book. And they think they just want to move forward with the answer and they just want to fix it. Let's just solve it. And in reality, the grace which he leads with and the grace which he teaches is not about diving into the puzzle and fixing the puzzle as fast as possible. It has a lot to do with situational awareness. And as you call it, rewilding. I love the term. It's a really catchy term. So I hope you champion this, Tom. I hope you really, really bring this to the world in a big way, because our world, the world I want my kids to live in, needs it. People will benefit from having that. So thank you so much for being here, Vision Pros. Those of you listening in, we're going to have Tom's links, of course, on the page so you can reconnect with him. You can, of course, Google Serenity and Leadership and find him there too. We'll also put the resources and the links below as well. And we've got that big button in the top right corner that says Be Our Guest. If you're a visionary leader, you want to come on the show and talk about your vision, we would love to have you. You don't have to have the ultimate grand cure for the world in terms of rewilding. You don't have to be that far along. You might be at the discovery phase of what it is you want to do. We're just looking to find those who want to make real impact in this world and want to help and are going to put some work in to make that happen. So Tom, thanks for all that you've done. Any final thoughts you want to share before we wrap up?
You asked me with these big questions. Thank you. Thank you for sharing some time with me and giving me the opportunities to share my ideas. I'd love to come back. There's lots more to talk about.
Yes.
And thank you to all those who are still here and listening and watching. And I hope that there's just something amongst all the things that we've said, Jackson and I, that will make a difference to you.
I love it. Vision Pros. We'll see you next time. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.